How's everyone? Are we having fun? I mean, how great is it to be with your people in the field of mental health? So I'm Kathy Flaminio with Move Mindfully, and we're going to start with a little mindfulness practice. We know that it is so wonderful to be with everyone, and we're hearing all sorts of information, but that information goes into our body. And a lot of us are not sitting during the day during our jobs. How many backs are a little bit like, whoa, this is a lot for me to sit? So you're welcome to sit. If you just walked in that beautiful path here, you're welcome to sit. But I'm going to invite you just to kind of shake off your arms, and if you want, you can stand up. I'm going to do a little wake up in the morning. So just get the arms shaking out and just take a breath in and a nice exhale out. Getting your mind and body and heart ready to be available to listen today, not only with our ears. And then either if you're sitting, you can kind of do that wrap, maybe that Chrissy did yesterday. Otherwise, I'm going to invite you to actually move your body, And we're crossing midline. So when we cross midline, we organize right and left hemispheres of the brain. So take a few breaths in and exhale out. And as you're doing this, just check head to toe how you're feeling physically today. And then give that a little shake, and let's find those collarbones, and we're going to give ourselves a little tap, a little wake up, and start tapping right below. There's a little soft spot here. Inhale through the nose. And let's exhale with an SH. Shh. Let's do that again. Shh. Moving from anger to assertive action. And then tap the thymus right here. Inhale through your nose and then blow out the candle. Moving from fear to courage, what you're going to hear about today, the courageous acts that we take in our lives. Breathe in. And then right underneath the eyes, if you have glasses, you can just tap here. And let's do the S sound, moving grief into hope. And if you like, you can go around the eyes and kind of figure eights. Or do little raindrops all over. Just allow your body to arrive in this space. Give it a little shake, come back. What I love about movement, you do it a few times. Come back to that sway. Take a shake, have a seat, or stay up, and then just be like, I'm ready for the day. Let me hear that. I'm ready for today. Keeping myself well in the process. Weave down, place your hands on the heart, and if you want, you can sit or stand, but gently place the hand where it's lightly touching that sternal notch. This deactivates the flight fight, but if in your body that doesn't feel well, your brain and body smart, move it down. And now bring your hand to your head for a neurovascular hold, bringing blood to the front brain, and connecting mind and heart and body. And just take a few breaths as you settle. One more breath. If trauma is too much, too fast, too soon, we want low and slow. Bring your hands to your heart. And I'm going to end with resourceful. As I was thinking about what Brandon's going to talk about today in his story of resilience, I think each and every one of you is resourceful, and I also think the children, youth, and families that we work with every single day are resourceful. So just take this in, not just with your ears, but your heart, for yourself today. There is a way, and I'm the way. Inner resource, resourceful wants me to remember, I know enough, I have enough, and I'm more than enough. It can be easy or easier than I think. And the wish for all of you today is may you find your way with ease. May you connect with the people who will support you. And may you find exactly who and what you need, exactly when you need it. So I hope you all have a wonderful day. We're so honored to be here with you, and I'm so excited to hear your story, Brandon. Thank you all.
All right, welcome to Tuesday Keynote. We hope you are having a great time at the 29th Annual MACMA Child and Adolescent Mental Health Conference. We are certainly enjoying everyone here. So again, my name is Amanda Zhang. I am the Professional Development Director here at the Minnesota Association for Children's Mental Health. I would like to take a few moments here to acknowledge our wonderful sponsors. Without their generosity, we would be unable to achieve our dreams of helping all children grow up happy, healthy, and productive. Our sponsors are Perry St. John's, Alina Health, North Homes Children and Family Services, Rogers Behavioral Health, Blue Cross and Blue Shield, and Plus of Minnesota, and Nexus Family Healing. I would also like to take this opportunity to say thank you to the MACMA staff, board members, and our volunteers for supporting all 1,466 of us during these last 3 days. So just making sure everything went smoothly. For the last time in the conference, can we ask you to please put your phones on silence? We'd like to remind you that evaluations will be online, sent out to your emails today, and please complete the evaluations. The instructions will show you the how to fill out the evaluations, and then you'll get a certificate of attendance. If you have any questions, please contact info@macma.org. So again, if you have questions, please contact info@macma.org. Now I am pleased to introduce our speaker. Brandon Jones is the Executive Director of the Minnesota Association for Children's Mental Health. He brings us a wealth of expertise in consulting and therapy. His focus areas encompass adverse childhood experiences, historical and intergenerational trauma, social emotional intelligence, leadership, and the intercultural development inventory. Brandon's academic journey boasts a BA in sociology from the University of Minnesota, a master's in community psychology from Metropolitan State University, and a master's in psychotherapy, MFT, from Adler Graduate School. He is a distinct 2013 Bush Foundation Leadership Fellow. Also shows that his dedication to leadership and excellence. His life ethos is to encapsulate the motto, live life with purpose on purpose. Please welcome Brandon Jones. Thank you.
All right, good morning, everyone. All right. So I'm gonna tell this portion of my story now. I did not want to do this. I really didn't. I did not want to be the guy who keynotes his own conference. I didn't want to do that. And a lot of my story has been listening to the people around me and trusting their words. And one of the things that my board told me and my staff told me over 2 years ago is you need to get an assistant. I don't need an assistant. You need to get an assistant. You need somebody to help you. And I finally listened, and I got that assistant. And Libby told me a couple of days ago, she said, no, you need to do this. You need to get off your humble horse, and people want to hear from you. So I'm doing this because my team and my board said, this is your time to tell your story. My talk, thank you. So I entitled this, Moving Beyond Wounds, Embracing Opportunities and Healing Through Post-Traumatic Growth. My goal today is to expand our lenses. I'm going to share a lot of my story, but I am going to give some content as well. And I really just want to add some context to the things that many of us are feeling, we're seeing, we're hearing in our day-to-day work, both professionally and personally. And I'm going to do that through my own narrative, and hopefully there's something that I say that resonates with you that either makes you go, or aha. So tell me your story. This is the theme of our conference this year. If you haven't connected with somebody you did not know, I highly encourage that you do before we close out today. There's a reason why you are all here. After the pandemic, doing things like this, for some people it was very anxiety provoking. For others, they just couldn't wait. But the narratives and the things that we've been through is what keeps us connected. And I appreciate all of you for being here and coming to this conference and continue to do the great work that we all do. It's very important, but our narratives is what keeps us going, and the narratives of the folks that we help that keeps our fires burning and keeps us fueled to do this great work. So here's my story. My story is a narrative of trauma and drama. Trauma and drama. Yes, it's the truth. So let's talk about it. Here's baby Brandon. As you can see, that's me and my first girlfriend right there to the right. And then that's me hanging out at my great-grandparents' house with the cool shades on. So I was born, my mom is from the Twin Cities area. She went to North High School. Actually, the story that I was told was her and my father were really good friends. They were doing their version of Netflix and chill back in the 80s. So it must have been VHS and chill. They were watching Purple Rain. One thing led to another, and she got pregnant with me. Now, that's a true story, by the way. I'm not joking. So they were not intending to have me, but they did. But they were really good friends, and they maintained a good friendship for a couple years after I was born, and then things went a different direction. And one of the things that my mom often told me was, she never told me who my dad was. I found out who my dad was by accident, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Because she met another man, who ended up being my brother's father. He ended up being my stepfather. He was the man who stepped into our life and was there for most of my early years and for most of my brother's years as well. But my mom was a teenage parent. She got pregnant with me her senior year of high school. She literally walked across the aisle, graduated from North High School with me in her belly, and had me a few weeks later on July 4th. So it's a very interesting dynamic. And me and my mom, we have a very interesting relationship. We don't have the typical mother-son relationship or parent-child relationship. We've kind of developed as peers, because as she was parenting me, she was still trying to figure out how to be an adult herself, which is a very interesting concept, and I'm gonna come back to that in a moment. So here's a family photo. What's missing? You can say it. Where's the dad at, right? Now this is an interesting photo because this is the one that all the family got. I don't know why, but if you go to somebody's house in my family, this is the family photo they have of my family. We just might have got a good deal on the Sears package or something. I don't know what it was, but everybody has this photo. But a few years ago, this is almost 10 years ago now, my mom had called me and my brothers over to help clean out the garage, and we came across this box of photos. So me and my brothers were going through the photos, we're looking at things, and we noticed several of these like family portraits that we had, these little packages, because we used to literally go to Sears right off of University to get this done. And we noticed, where's our dad at? They would just hit us like, wait, he's not in any of these photos, but he was around. He was around, and it was very metaphoric, because even though he was around, he wasn't always present. And this is a big part of my development. My dad he abused drugs, and he abused my mom. I grew up with a lot of domestic violence. Most of my childhood memories are of domestic violence things. And being the oldest, that domestic violence and that anger started to turn towards me because I would intervene. He always treated me different. I didn't know why he treated me different. As you can see, I'm the kid in the back of the photo here. There's a kid right under me. That's my brother Michael. He's Michael Jr. And I used to ask my mom, why is he Michael Jr.? Why didn't you name me Michael Jr.? Like, what's that about? I didn't know that Michael wasn't my dad at the time. And she told me a half-truth. And Minnesotans, we're really good at half-truths, right? We do those very well. She said, well, I named you Brandon because when I was pregnant with you, I would stay home a lot and watch soap operas. And there was a character named Brandon, and that name always stood out to me. And I said, oh, that's interesting. So that was half-true. The other part of the truth was, that ain't your dad. That's the other part. which I found out literally probably about a month before my 12th birthday. I was at my grandma's house. I had just came back from Super America. I used to drink a lot of Sprites and Snickers. That's a bad combination. It's probably why I'm as big as I am today. But that's what I used to do. I came back, and I never forget, I came back, and my grandma had this very serious look in her face, and she said, Brandon, go sit down. I need to tell you something. Now, I'm black, African American. When your grandma tells you to go sit down, you need to hear something, you're probably about to get your butt whooped. And that's what I thought was about to happen. I was terrified. I was like, oh, I'm about to get the spanking of my life. I knew I didn't do anything wrong, but I was scared. And she said, no, you need to listen. I need to tell you something important. And she said, Michael is not your dad. Your dad is somebody else, and he lives in Minneapolis, and you're gonna go see him on your birthday. I was terrified. I was like, whoa. I started crying. Part of my tears were relief, because I did not like Michael. Michael was just painful, and I just couldn't stand him. And I don't think he liked me, to be honest, either. But then part of the crying was fear, because I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what that meant for my family. I didn't know what that meant for me. I didn't know what was gonna happen next. But all I knew was on my birthday, I was gonna meet my dad. So I set it up, and I remember my grandma was like, I'm gonna take you to meet him on your birthday. My birthday's July 4th, so when my birthday's around, there's usually a cookout, and there's a lot of fun. So I asked my favorite person to come with me to meet my dad, and you might recognize this person. This is my favorite person right here. This is Benjamin Roberts. For the folks who don't know who that is, he recently became the executive director at Holly Q. Brown. Now, you might not know Benny, he's a great guy, but I used to beat him up all the time. And he will admit this. He will tell you that every time we seen each other, it was a fight. So this photo, I guarantee you, 5 minutes after this photo was taken, I was pummeling him somewhere, somehow. But that was my guy. That was my buddy. And we've had some back and forths throughout the years, but we grew up together. 2 kids from Rondo, now executive directors of 2 very important, programs in the state of Minnesota. It's a very interesting dynamic. But yeah, clap for that too. But he was my safety net. I told him, come with me, I need you. I need you to help me meet my dad. And we got there, and I found out I had sisters. I was like, oh, I got sisters. My dad had other children. I had all these cousins, people that looked like me. They embraced me. They're like, you look like your father. You look like your dad. But my dad wasn't there. Now, this is before people had cell phones. So my grandma said, I'm going to come pick you up when the street lights come on. So I played and I had fun, and the street lights started to come on. And I remember my grandma walked through the door, and my dad came right behind her, and we had this brief transaction. He's like, hey, I'm your dad. If you need anything from me, here's my phone number. Happy birthday. And I went on. And I remember riding back to St. Paul, going 94E, back to my comfort zone, and thinking, I don't need a man. I don't need a dad. I don't need to trust anybody. I was 12. I had just started growing a little hair on my face and a little hair under my armpits. I was feeling myself. I didn't need a man for nothing. I was like, look, I got this. I got this under control. But I didn't. I gave myself a narrative, a core belief that I can't trust men, especially black men, and I'm going to have to figure things out on my own. Part of my trauma actually has led to how I am as a leader. My mom used to always tell me, if you want something done right, do it yourself. And I never forgot that. And that's one of the things that I struggle with today. Delegation is like always on my performance reviews, like he needs to learn how to delegate. He needs to learn how to delegate. Because my mama drilled that into me. So who was I? Who was I as this kid trying to navigate, this pain of not really having a connection to his dad, seeing this domestic violence, being this older brother? I was a really angry teen, but nobody knew. It was all internalized. And I was a nerd. Nobody knew that either, unless you could check my grades, but because I played football. So I had an outlet to unleash my frustration, and I had a cover for my identity. I could tell people I was a football player. They never questioned anything. So this is me in high school. I'm the guy with the yellow throwback jersey on there in the corner. And this picture is very funny to me as well, because all the guys, you can't see everybody in this photo, but we all have these like mean mugs on our face. I'm like, what was going on back in 2003? Like, we are some angry dudes, man. Like, nobody smiles at all. There's no smiles in any of these photos. And when I look back at all these people, we all have figured out like a nice, sustainable and stable kind of pathway in life. Like, some people went to the military, some went to college, some went straight into the workforce. We all have families, everybody's done something. But we were some angry guys back in the day. But it was just masking pain, figuring it out, choosing false identities to navigate social dynamics. That was my life for a good chunk of my early years. But me being a nerd and me being a football player helped me get to a comfort zone. I'll never forget, I remember, part of my story I didn't tell is when I was 12, I actually left home. So when I found out that my stepfather was my real dad, stuff got really bad. He started to treat me completely different. The secret was finally out. And I remember I went to my mom and said, can I live with my grandma? And surprisingly, she said, yeah, if you want to live with her, that's fine. So I went and lived with my grandma, stayed with her throughout middle school, tried to come back home in the 9th grade. My mom had bought a house on the east side of St. Paul and said, hey, your stepdad's not going to be here. I want you to come back home and live with me. And probably about 3 months into me living back home, guess who showed up right before the holidays? Stepdad. And it was like right where we left off, but this time I was bigger, I was smarter, and I was more of a threat to him. But a lot of his frustration turned to my younger brother, so now it was kind of like a tag team type of thing. And I only lasted probably about 3 months before I decided to go back to my grandmother's house. So when I went back to my grandma's, at this point, she had lost her parents, so she was dealing with a lot of grief, and she had took in my uncle's kids as well. So I was always a helper, helping her, helping my cousins, trying to figure out, still helping my mom and my brothers from a distance as well. And I remember I said to myself, probably when I was about the 9th grade, I need to make it to college, because I knew college had 3 things that I was focused on. They had a place for me to stay, they had food, and there were girls there. I was like, I need to get to college. I'm like, I'm not lying. I'm like, I don't care what campus it is, it needs to be a campus, I will get there. And I just I just studied hard. I was almost a 4.0 student in high school because I just kept grinding, and then I finally made it. I had a choice. I could have played football for St. Cloud, or I could have went and got a full ride academic scholarship to the University of Minnesota. So I chose the University of Minnesota. I originally went to school to be a dentist. You probably wouldn't know, most people don't know that, but I originally went to school to be a dentist. And I found out first semester that public school science and math is very different than the University of Minnesota's math and science. And I almost flunked out. But since I had that scholarship, I had a special counselor who kind of helped us navigate and survive the University of Minnesota. And she kept it real with me. Her name's Crystal Ballard. Her son recently was just in the Final Four with Michigan State, Trey Holloman. And Crystal, she used to get my grades because she was my counselor. And I remember I got this email, it's like emergency email. She said, you need to come see me right away, as soon as possible. Give me a call, come see me. I gave her a call and she said, what are you doing right now? I said, well, I'm just in my dorm, hanging out. She was like, get dressed and come over to my office. Can you get it here in like the next hour? I said, yeah. And when I got there, she gave me probably one of the most important reality checks I've ever had. She told me, I walked in her office, she said, shut the door. I shut the door, she said, sit down. I was like, oh, it reminded me of my grandma. I was like, uh-oh, one of those times again. And she said, listen, it was hard to get you in this school. You had the grades, you had the accolades, but your test scores weren't the greatest. But we figured out a way to make you, to get you this opportunity and to keep you on the scholarship. She said, now think about the kids you came into the scholarship program with from your school. I went to Central High School. There were 5 black males, me, my best friend Chris, a guy named DeRay, and a few other guys, Alex Cato. And she said, now, of the 5 of you, only 2 of you are gonna graduate on time, and 1 of you is probably gonna end up dropping out completely. And she was just telling me this based off of the stats. The stats would have predicted that, and she was right. That's exactly what happened. But what she told me, she said, but you belong here, and you're gonna graduate on time. And then she, excuse my language, but then she said, get your shit together. And then she was like, you can go now. And then I walked out, and I was like, oh, it felt like grandma all over again. And that's what I did, and I never looked back. But the decision I had to make was, do I continue being a pre-dentistry student, or do I do something else? And at the time, I was only passing 1 class, like comfortably, which was a class called People and Problems. Now, at the time, I did not know it was a sociology class. I just knew that I knew a bunch of people with a bunch of problems. And the stuff that I was reading in them books made a lot of sense. So I was like, it worked out. So one day, I'm in actually a lecture hall bigger than this, actually, at the University of Minnesota. And Dr. Heidi Baraha, some of you may know her. I'm in her class, and I'm just flowing. I didn't even realize I was just in the zone answering questions, raising my hand. She's lecturing. And then close to the end of the lecture, she stops and she says, I don't know who's studying with this kid, but whoever is gonna pass the next exam. And I was that kid, and I didn't know. I was like, whoa, don't talk about me. Because In my community, being smart, you don't want the spotlight intelligence. You become a target for teasing and picking on and dozens and all that stuff. So I was like, oh crap, like she just pointed me out in front of everybody. So class ended, and I went up to her. I said, hey, I would appreciate if you never do that again. And she said, no, I've been reading your essays, and today, and I've been paying attention to your work, and today you showed that, that you're good at this. And she said, you should consider getting a PhD. I was like, oh, okay. And I just kind of left, walked away, went back to my dorm room, and guess what I did? I Googled, what is a PhD? I had no idea. I'm not lying. I had no idea. I was a first-generation college student. I didn't know. I Googled that and said, oh, there's college after college? What is that? I thought I was almost done. No, there's this thing called grad school that planted a seed. Keep going. Somebody seen that I had some kind of skill, some kind of talents to keep going. That gave me a lot of validation. This photo here gave me a lot of validation as well. I was the second person in 4 generations to graduate from college in my family. The person before me was my cousin, and she played college basketball, so it was a little different. But since then, a lot of folks have decided to go to school, so I was kind of trailblazing things for my family. It was very interesting. This next photo is another moment of me trailblazing. I was literally the first person to get married in 3 generations in my family. For some reason, my grandmother's generation, they all got married, had a bunch of kids, but my mom's generation, nobody got married. Everybody had kids, but no one got married. But Brandon broke the mold, and then everybody started to get married. It was a very fascinating dynamic. And this was important because we were trying to establish foundation. We were doing something different in my family, and of course, Brandon was the front runner to do that. So this was a big moment. This was a big moment for my family. My biological father was at my wedding, which was a very interesting thing. So a lot of my family were like, oh, like they got to meet my dad for the first time. It was a really cool thing. And it was a great day. It was amazing, amazing opportunity. And then I started to become the family man. And this is where many folks who are familiar with me, if you've seen I've been in any of my trainings or seen any content I develop, I've kind of become like the family man. A lot of folks in my community looked at my family like we were the Cosbys. And I was like, I'm not the Cosbys, I'm not even close. But that was kind of the focus for us. I became the family man. And I ran with that. And I had that badge and I did that. Now, in this photo, this is the last family professional photo that we took. And you see I have 3 daughters, but you see 2 of them, Zanella, who's in my arms, and then baby Audrey at the time. She's not a baby no more, but baby Audrey with her mother, and then my ex-wife, Monica. So, this was important. Family was important. Being a father, I've developed co-parenting programs. I've done all different types of fatherhood work. A lot of it's been based in overcoming trauma and moving forward. And what's fascinating is I ended up getting a divorce almost a year ago. And the thing that I dedicated my life work to is the same thing that brought my marriage down: childhood trauma and mental health. And I didn't see it. It was a blind spot. I thought I was doing all the right things, and I ignored a lot of stuff. Now, there were several events that led to it: traumatic birth of our 3rd child, sudden death of my mother-in-law, which is why I missed this conference 2 years ago, bought a house, and we had a significant move. It was like these big life events were happening, and we were all going through this emotional roller coaster just trying to hold it together. And I thought I was the guy who was just making it happen, holding it all together, and I missed a lot of what my ex-wife needed. I also missed a lot of what I needed too, and that ultimately led to a disunion. Now, I can talk about this because me and her, we've done a lot. We've probably become better co-parents than we were actual parents, which is kind of weird. I was like, oh, how do we figure this thing out? But it was interesting. So for me, this was a moment to pause and say, okay, where am I going? What's happening? And why is this work so important? Why is this work so important? And you'll see my 3rd child, Skylar, here towards the end of my talk. So this work for me has always been both professional and personal. Professional and personal. Now, I'm clinically trained, and I'll never forget when I was at Adler, I don't remember which class it was, but we were talking about transference and countertransference and becoming a clinician and, protecting your identity and not identifying too much with your clients and all this stuff. I'm like, this is not gonna work for the people that I work with. Like, this is gonna be tough, because because I was planning to work mostly with African American folks, and in my community, people wanna know who you are, where you come from, what you like to do, who your grandma is, are we cousins? Like, we ask a lot of questions. And if you're from St. Paul, and I know there's some St. Paul folks in here, you know this. When it comes to the African American community, there's like a 2-degree separation between us. Like, there's not a big variance. So you hear those laughs, they know I'm telling the truth. Because it's such a tight-knit community, everybody's just a mesh, we all kind of know each other. It's very interesting. So as I start to process through this and start to think about all my work and where I've come today, it started to make me think, how did I get to this point? And this is where I'm going to kind of drive home over the next 30 minutes or so, my message to all of you and some encouragement to help us keep going throughout these times. Does anybody know what this is? Okay. Now, I talked about, my childhood being traumatic. There were some good times, too. A lot of those good times was playing Sega, playing this right here. This is Sonic the Hedgehog. Now, this hit me. I was doing a leadership retreat a couple years ago, and I was just riffing, and we were talking about, how our lives are changing during the pandemic and how we're always on go mode, and now everybody's stressed out, everybody needs a therapist, people want to talk about things, we're all going through this level of grief. And I said, you know what? It sounds like a game of Sonic the Hedgehog. They were like, what do you mean by that? And I said, well, think about this game. You set a stage, that's your week. You are Sonic, and you're blazing through your week as fast as possible, trying to collect rings, which are just like moments of joy and hope. Now, there are shortcuts that you can take. There's, these various different elements that bounce you around. There's creatures that are trying to pull down, those are your haters, people trying to bring you down, bring down your joy. And then there's these checkpoints. And at the ultimate goal of the game is to just get to the end of the stage so you can go to the next level. And I said, man, that's how a lot of us live our day to day. We are a bunch of Sonic the Hedgehogs just blazing through our week, praying that we get through a checkpoint and that we can make it to the end of the day or end of the week just to restart on a new level next time. And then sometimes we get to that final boss, and that's a whole other thing for us as well. But many of us live our lives like this. So, I'm a geriatric millennial, so a lot of my life has been focused around video games. But this is how we roll. We literally are blazing through our week. Some of you are right now itching to get on the road just to get back home. And that's a reality. I get it. I definitely understand it. But we found ourselves in what's called a wicked problem. And this wicked problem is where we are in society. And this is very important for us to understand in the work that we do, because we're helping people with their wicked problems all the time. But we found ourselves in a society that has been completely 180 flipped. Think about work. Now, traditionally, nobody cared about how you felt at work. It was not important. We didn't care about your identities. You were supposed to do what? Go to school, get good grades, get a good job, keep your head down, work hard, and pray to God that you get a pension. That's how it was supposed to be. It's not like that anymore. Now you show up to work, we want to know what's your identity, what are your pronouns, what do you believe in, do we have the same beliefs, do you care about me, are you listening to me, is my voice being heard? Don't look me in the eye, no, look me in the eye, respect me. There's a lot of pressure on us to shift and change. And that shift and change also, a lot of it, we look at it as a social connection thing, but really it's an internal process. Are we comfortable enough to make that shift and change? So what is a wicked problem? A wicked problem is often difficult to define. It's very socially complex. There's not always a clear solution. And ultimately, it takes multiple different, disciplines or approaches to solve. And that's where we are today. We're getting all these reports that we're in a mental health crisis. Our children, the parents, pretty soon the report's gonna come out about us. We're in a mental health crisis as well. And this wicked problem is really pushing us and pushing us and pushing us to keep going forward. So again, wicked problems are highly complex, systemic, and interconnected issues that resist simple solutions and require multiple discipline approaches. So when we think about this current mental health crisis we're in, it's a wicked problem. There's many layers to it. There's not going to be an ABC solution. It's going to take a lot of innovation, a lot of creativity, and a lot of internal work for ourselves to get to a better space than where we are today. They're characterized by complexity, ambiguity, and uncertainty, and often involve competing interests and values. They also are to address wicked problems. Leaders need to pose a set of skills, traits, and allow them to navigate complexity, adapt to changed circumstances, and collaborate with diverse stakeholders. So one of the ways that I've looked at dealing with this wicked problem that we have today, and even within myself, is this concept of post-traumatic growth. Now, I've done a lot of ACEs trainings. I've been an ACE trainer since 2012, and it's to the point now where Minnesota's been very forward with ACE trainings. Like, just raise your hand if you've had an ACE training before. Like, that's almost everybody. We're almost traumatized by talking about trauma at this point. Like literally everything's trauma, so there's no trauma, right? We just exit it out, but we know there's trauma. But one of the things that people started to ask me, I would say probably over the last 2 years, is, okay, we get it. We got it. ACEs, adversity shows up in people's lives. It has an impact. But what is next? Now that we know this, what do we do about it? Which is a very fair and good question to ask. Like, what do we do? What do we do? And I think one of the things that we do is we start looking at this concept called post-traumatic growth. Post-traumatic growth. And, there's been other elements of ACEs. We've done adverse community experiences. We've talked about epigenetics. Even cultural intelligence has been thrown in there as well. But I think post-traumatic growth is going to be one of the key pieces to help us move beyond some of the trauma that we've experienced. Now, here's my definition for trauma, so you know what I'm talking about as I reference this. It's my quick and dirty definition: a deep emotional wound. A deep emotional wound. Now, there's a bunch of big, fancy academic definitions for trauma, but a lot of times people understand this because we know that trauma impacts everybody differently, even when you're in the same household. Like I showed you my 2 younger brothers, and we've done a lot of family therapy and engagement and things over the years. And one thing that I learned is that we all experience the domestic violence in our home very differently, very differently. Even the same events. Our perspectives, our emotional connections, the way that we responded, we're all very different. To the point sometimes I'm like, were you even there? Like, do you remember what happened? What's going on? But I had to think about it. Birth order plays a role, connection to certain parents plays a role, viewpoint plays a role. All these things play a role. So trauma shows up very differently for different people. Does have an impact, but sometimes the things that we may consider to be traumatic may not always resonate with other people the same way. And we have to keep that in mind when we're helping folks, when we're working through communities, especially communities with a lot of complexities, is that sometimes the most traumatic thing that we may see in a document or something we may receive, some information about a family, might not be the thing that they want to address or they want to deal with. And that's a very hard thing for us to do as professionals because we know the impacts of all this stuff. Many of us have been trained. But sometimes we have to adjust our lenses to understand a different perspective on how to help. And I think post-traumatic growth is one of those things that can help with that. Now, trauma comes, and I think that is closely associated with toxic stress and toxic stress environments. Like, if you think about a lot of the trauma that people experience, they're in some very unhealthy environments and spaces and dynamics. All right, let's talk about post-traumatic growth. So post-traumatic growth is a positive psychological change experienced because of adversity and other challenges to rise to a higher level of functioning. I'm a big functioning person. Like, how do we function? Ultimately, post-traumatic growth highlights benefits of emotional growth, stronger relationship bonds, and a different perspective on life. So there's 5 domains of post-traumatic growth that I'm going to walk you all through right now. The first one is personal strength. So trauma often leads to self-doubt. A lot of times, we identify with our trauma. Our trauma can become a label for many of us. I think that's a very dangerous space to be in. Acknowledge the experience, but we don't have to own it. And our experience doesn't have to own us either. And I meet so many people who just allow the trauma to be the captivating thing for them. And I think that that's going to hold a lot of us back from truly finding what we need, whether that's salvation or healing, whatever term or focus you want to be on. You have to understand that labeling yourself with the trauma is one of the most detrimental things you can do to help yourself grow and move beyond it. Recognize your ability to handle challenges is important. Many of us have stories. Some of you may have connected with my story that I shared today, or maybe some of the stories that have been shared throughout this conference. But we made it to this point. Not all fixed, not 100%, but good enough to keep moving forward. And that means something. That's important. Increase your sense of capability to survive and prevail, and then we must believe in our own possibilities. There's a lot of reasons to be hopeless right now, especially in our field. There's a lot of uncertainty around funding, around approaches, around need, but that doesn't mean that it has to be over. It may mean that we just have to get more creative, we have to partner better, we have to look inside and say, what do we truly need and do we need to adjust? This may be a time to recalibrate instead of shut down. The second domain of post-traumatic growth is healthy relationships. Finding supports and networks to help you move forward. Sometimes when we go through stuff, it's very difficult for us to be vulnerable, share that with somebody else. And oftentimes when we are in traumatic situations, we don't know how to relate to people differently. I'll never forget so many clients that I've seen that I became their big brother, the pseudo dad, the big cousin. Now that I'm a little older, unc. I don't like that. I should tell the barbershop story. I'll tell it. All right. I've officially become an OG, and it hurt my heart. It hurt my heart. This is about 2 months ago. I was in a barbershop, and one of the barbers was cut. I think he's about maybe 24, 25, and another one of their friends were there, and they're just talking sports. No, they weren't. They were talking sports, and then it turned into like relationship stuff. And then they turned to me and said, "OG, what do you think about this?" I'm like, I didn't know they were talking to me. I was like, you look like you've been through some stuff. What do you know about that? I'm like, so I'm officially Unc and OG in the community now, which, I don't got that many grades yet, but I'm there. But that hurt my heart. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was like, dang, I'm an old man now. So, setting relationships. But that was but they see me, the key to that was this, and this is what I took away from it after I stopped crying, was they realized that I was somebody that they could trust to ask some information to. That was important. I mean, I know the barber because I've seen him there, but I don't really know these guys. But they trusted me enough to say, what do you think about this? What's your perspective? That's a key thing, especially amongst men. We don't like to ask men for anything. We don't like to ask for anything anyway, but that's a whole nother conversation, a whole nother training. So, setting firm boundaries and letting your expectations be known. Very important part of healthy relationships. A lot of times when people talk about boundaries, what's the first thing we go to? I need to learn how to say no. Yes, that's true, but that's not what boundaries are just about. It's not just about saying no. Boundaries are about your expectations of how you want to be treated by others and how you treat yourself. And one of the key things to understanding boundaries is, can you articulate both of those things? And a lot of people can't. Because a lot of people don't even know what their boundaries are until what? Somebody crosses them. You're like, ooh, that didn't feel good. I didn't like that. But we have to think about that. Like, what do I need from others and what do I need from myself? And then also with healthy relationships is being afraid of being vulnerable is a significant obstacle. Vulnerability is probably a key element of healing. But you have to measure how much vulnerability you can have and how much you're willing to share and how much you're willing to deal with yourself. A lot of people are scared to be vulnerable. And that's one of the things that's keeping them back on their journey. It's holding them back, is that level of vulnerability. All right. The third level of post-traumatic growth is appreciation and purpose for life. Now, you heard my motto, live life with purpose on purpose. That was in my bio. But purpose is important. It's one of those things that just kind of keeps us, it's like a fuel, keeps us moving forward, keeps us navigating. So understanding what is important to you. What are your values and why are they your values? This is important for us as we go along our journey. Why is this important to me? Why does this mean anything? Doing things that lead to purpose is very important. Many of us, and this is that old way of thinking, especially about work, many of us are doing things and that we do not like because it's the right thing to do, or it's just what I've always done. And in this new world, you have to be adaptable. You have to adjust, which means you might have to stop doing some things that you've always done. It's gonna be okay. Somebody else will pick it up, or it might just end because it probably needs to. But we have to give ourselves permission to keep moving forward. And then this is where the Minnesota nice thing comes in. Celebrate small victories. We are so humble. We don't like celebrating small victories. It's okay to give yourself a pat on the back. You are always going to be your biggest cheerleader. Area number 4, consistent constructive choices, right? So don't be afraid of new experiences, explore new information, new spaces, and new people. We have to expand ourselves. Our world is forcing us to do this already. Some of us are terrified by it, but there's an opportunity here to connect and to learn and to grow. Exposure and consistency are key. Being able to try something different and then try it again. Sometimes it's not going to work always the way that you expect, and sometimes it's going to be good, but don't be afraid to circle back on it. A lot of folks, we do things one time and we're done with it. It's okay to keep trying and keep moving forward. And then have some compassion for yourself, especially us in the helping profession. We pour so much into everybody else, and then we wait and figure out how do we recharge our own batteries. And that's one of the things we struggle with. And then number 5, personal development. So don't be afraid of discovering who you are or who you truly want to be. What are you investing in yourself? And are you keeping it real with yourself? As the young people say, are you keeping it 100 with yourself? A lot of us focus on looking out the window. And hopefully, if anything sticks with you that I say today, I want to encourage you to look in the mirror. It's okay to peer out the window from time to time, but don't forget to peer back and look in the mirror. We're going to have to self-evaluate all the time. So post-traumatic growth. Post-traumatic growth can lead to improved relationships with others, more compassion, openness, appreciation for life, spiritual growth, personal strength, and a renewed sense of possibilities in this world. And I want to encourage you all to think about well-being and something that I call sustainable wellness. Sustainable wellness, which is ultimately being proactive with your self-care. Now, this might have been 2012, 2013, we started to usher in the well-being era. You know, we always have these phases in our field: harm reduction, trauma-informed care, well-being. Like, we always have these themes that come through. So if you were around back in that time, you remember we started to open up our team meetings with 10-minute breathing exercises, and let's all sit in silence and blah, 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 right? Do you all remember this? I remember it. I'm like, what the hell is going on up in here? Like, this is kind of weird. I'm happy to be here, though, but it's weird. But what we were doing was we started to realize, like, oh, we're not all good either. We need to also work on ourselves. But a lot of us learn self-care in a very reactionary state. We were responding to something. And now we've been going through this so long, we have to be proactive. We have to flip it, right? Being more proactive. We know we have tough jobs. Some of you are working on work emails on your phone right now. I see one person. I'm not going to point that person out. Because we have to get stuff done. If I don't do it, who will? And we're just burning that candle. We're just burning it. And we've had to question, what is work-life balance? I laugh at this because I don't know what that is. Like, people, my staff know my work-life balance is insane. If you ever have the pleasure or the privilege to see Brandon's calendar, you would think I'm a madman, right? You would think I'm crazy. Because their work-life balance, I think this is something that's been challenged for many of us due to the pandemic. It forced us to really reevaluate, what does this even mean? So for myself, and one of the things I try to model and encourage is, let's talk about life balance. What is just life balance? And even further that, how about we find a life rhythm? Because there's ebbs and flows in this. Remember, I talked about being adaptable. We have to find this rhythm in our lives. What is rhythm? Something I don't have a lot of, I'll be honest with you. I cannot dance to save my life. But most of my other parts of my life have a good rhythm to it. So rhythm refers to a pattern of recurring beats or events often found in music, poetry, or other art forms, as well as in nature and even in human behavior. The last part's key. We have to find what our rhythm is. And it's going to be different for different people. And sometimes your rhythm may be different on different days. But you have to figure out what that is for yourself. And then tune into it. It's okay. Sometimes you're going to have a rhythm that's very low vibration. Sometimes you're going to have a rhythm that's real high and turned up. Like you're going to just be up there. That's okay. All that is fine. But you have to be the person who tunes that rhythm. If all those external events are tuning it, you're going to lose yourself. So what is well-being? Well-being is a state of balance or alignment in the body, mind, and the spirit. It is the state that feels the purpose, people, community, peaceful, and energized, resilient, and safe. So think about your own well-being and what you need to keep moving forward. Hopefully you're getting prepared for the next normal. It's already here. If you're scared by AI, I'm sorry. You ain't gonna stop it. It's here. Virtual reality is right behind it. That's probably even more scary. Pretty soon, none of us are gonna be in this room together. We're all just gonna teleport from our homes into a space. I'm not joking. This is like, I know it sounds funny, but we're gonna have virtual conferences, like virtual reality conferences, where we just teleport in. We see each other, but we're all like, on our couch. It's weird, but it's coming. I've seen it. Google it. It's gonna happen. Yeah, everybody's like, what? What is he talking about? Yeah, pay attention. The technology that sounds scary, if anybody watch Black Mirror, oh, that's amazing. Season 7 just came out, check it out. Don't be surprised if some of that stuff starts popping up here in the next couple of years. I know it's freaky, but a lot of that technology is being worked on, and it's gonna affect all of our jobs in one way or another. For those social workers, those clinicians in here, get ready for the AI case notes and treatment plans. They're already implementing it in some places. It's coming. Get ready for you think telehealth is a problem. Ooh, wait till you do virtual reality sessions where you can virtually touch each other. And so it's gonna be weird. It's gonna be weird. Yeah, I don't wanna be the person to scare you. I'm just giving you a heads up, all right? So it reminds me of this, and I'm gonna get ready to close on these next few slides. This is a Peanuts cartoon. You might not be able to see it very well. But you see an interaction between Snoopy and Charlie Brown. So Snoopy, wakes up frantically, hops off Snoopy's house, goes to Charlie's house, kicks the door, bam, bam. Charlie wakes up, goes to Snoopy and says, "Are you upset, little friend? Have you been lying awake, worrying? Well, don't you worry, I'm here. I'm here to give you reassurance, and everything's gonna be all right, Snoopy. The floodwaters will recede, and the famine will end, and the sun will shine tomorrow, Snoopy." Then Charlie loves up on Snoopy, gives Snoopy a big hug. "And I'll always be here to take care of you, Snoopy. Be reassured." And then sends Snoopy back on Snoopy's way. Snoopy goes home. Then Charlie gets into bed and goes, "Who reassures the reassurer?" You're Charlie Brown. You are the reassurers. And we have to think about this. Who helps us recharge our battery? How do we keep going in this work? Because this work means a lot. And we're dealing with that triple threat, right? That compassion fatigue, that secondary trauma, that burnout. These are all things that show up for us. And we have to pay attention to these things. We have to be proactive in taking care of ourselves when we are addressing these three needs. These next few slides, I'm going to refer to you all as leaders as I close out. Believe it or not, we all lead in one way or another. And at the very least, you lead yourself. So hopefully this resonates. Resilience and change management. Change brings uncertainty, resistance, and emotional upheaval. Adaptive leaders, which we all are, help people hold steady, acknowledge fears, and build collective strength to move forward. Manage emotional responses to change, support people through loss and adaptation, and stay focused amid discomfort. In the work that we do, this is going to be some of the most important things that we start focusing on, because we're dealing with something we never dealt with our coworkers, with our teams, our departments, is you have to care about not just the work you do, but the people who do the work. And that's different. And if we stop caring about one another, the work's gonna get harder for many of us. So managing during lean times, we have to get right with ourselves. So you don't manage your own stress, it's going to make it much harder for you and your team. Understanding the true nature of motivation. So while we often assume that people are most motivated by money and other financial rewards, research has shown that autonomy, opportunities for skill development, and the ability to be meaningful, to do meaningful work can be powerful, rewarding as well. And this is important. This is something that's just different. We've always said, okay, I'll just give you a raise and that'll be fine. Now, don't get it wrong. People like to get paid. I understand that. People definitely like to get paid. But people also like to be heard and seen. And we have to add that element to how we do our work and how we engage. So you can talk about the hard things. It might seem easier to avoid the proverbial elephant in the room, but research suggests that ignoring your team's uncertainty or anxiety can actually make things worse. This comes from Knight. But also be willing to lead by example and talk about your own anxieties as well. How do we balance the short-term and the long-term goals? 1, adaptive leaders toggle between the now and the next. The now and the next. A lot of our work has been, especially if you've been clinically trained, focusing on the past. But being present is going to be very important. Being present is going to be very important. So focusing on now and the next, we solve today's problems while keeping our eye on tomorrow's impact. These leaders balance the urgency and strategy, which helps to avoid burnout and misdirection. Avoid crisis mode tunnel vision, which a lot of us are experiencing right now, just given the new administration and focus that we're in. And align daily decisions with broader strategy. In these times, we have to be very strategic. We have to be very innovative. We have to be very creative. And we have to partner. I mentioned that 3 times for a reason already in my talk, because we're being forced to. Given the amount of uncertainty we have to connect better. We have to trust each other. We have to connect on an individual level, but also on an organizational level. It's very important. And then anticipate the ripple effects. We don't know what's around the corner, but it's coming. So we have to be as prepared as we can and ready to address whatever it is around that corner. And then just a few little things here that, speaking of modeling things, these are things that I've noticed with my own team and what they need and how to help, navigate an organization like MACMA. 4 keys to freedom for all employees that need to thrive. The freedom to be authentic, right? So set up and uphold non-discriminatory policies and establish programs to overcome bias in hiring, promotion, work opportunities, and day-to-day interaction. Foster a culture of allyship through education, relationship building, both within and across identity groups. We're gonna have to really think about what does authenticity look like from an organizational level and an individual level. Freedom of becoming their best selves, overcoming the praise deficit often faced by marginalized groups by offering equal access to develop programs and recognizing and focus people's strengths, and build a culture that encourages positivity, objectivity, and constructive feedback. The freedom to step back, increase diversity in your team to take the spotlight off of members of traditionally underrepresented groups. It offers flexibility benefits such as the ability to choose one schedule, to encourage managers to trust employees to collaborate, pull back on days if they need to. So again, those well-being days are important, given flexibility and autonomy. And then number 4, the freedom to fail. And it's funny, I had an interesting conversation with one of my staff on Saturday, because we both seen something and we're like, that's not gonna work this week. And I said, you know what, let them do it anyway, because they're gonna have to learn that that was a bad strategy. Because if we go fix it, they'll never learn that lesson. So you won't know what that strategy was because it worked out a little bit better, but it was pretty interesting. But you have to do that. You have to not necessarily let people fail, but you have to let people learn and adapt and deal with their adversity as well. You can't always patch up everybody's boo-boo. You can't do it. And that's a hard lesson for us to learn because that's what we do. We patch up boo-boos all the time. So you have to allow the failure to fail. All right, closing out. This is me. Some folks in this room know that this meme means more to me than you can ever imagine. But this is Brandon's mind most of the time. There's fires all around, but it's gonna be fine. I'm probably one of the most composed people many people have met. And I've gone through some crazy stuff. But I work on it every day. I work on myself every day. I show up certain ways every day. And I hope that my message to you encourages you to do the same. Because the fires, they're going to keep burning. But how are you going to put them out where they don't affect you as much as you think that they may affect you? And then this is the humble horse that I talked about earlier. Now, again, I did not want to do this. I was very, very honest about that. But it's important to show up when the people around you need you to. And that's what this talk was for me, is showing up for the people that needed me. So I want to end on three more slides. Healing. This is a part of my healing journey. And believe it or not, this is probably a part of yours as well. What is healing? Healing is a consistent process of efforts to create peace, balance, and justice. There's a reason why I don't practice clinically anymore. Being a black male therapist is like being a unicorn. We barely exist. There's literally like 5 of us in here right now. What's up, Jimmy? And us 5 in here, we know when people find us, they hold on tight, they don't want to let go. And I knew that, coming into this field, but I was not prepared. My cape was tied way too tight. My mission was right, but my strategy was wrong. I didn't have the appropriate supervision. I didn't have the appropriate support. I didn't have what I needed to stay sustainable in this work, and I got burnt out. And I knew I was burnt out 2 years before I stopped practicing, because I just tried to work through it. Didn't work. Now, I was fortunate enough to be a Bush Fellow, and that gave me a lot of leadership training and opportunity, but many other clinicians don't have that same type of opportunity to just keep working. And we're seeing that in our field right now, where people are saying, you know what, I'll just go work for Target. Or you know what, I'll be a nanny. You know what, I'm gonna go back to school and figure something else out. Because we're burning out. And I wanna encourage you all to take care of yourselves, because as you're helping other people through their healing journeys, you're also working through your own. So since I'm a geriatric millennial, I'm gonna show you one more video game. And this may be traumatic for some of you. You know what this is? Oh no, or somebody say, oh no. Now, if you're a parent, this video game probably haunts you, because you've probably spent hundreds of dollars on this video game, like myself. Do you know my 3-year-old asked me for Roblox? I'm like, girlfriend, you don't even know how the exchange of money yet. What are you talking about? She asked me for some Robux. For those of you who don't know what Roblox are, this game is an open world game. And they get you because the game is free, but everything else you have to pay for. So if you want something new, you have to pay for it. And then they make it so easy. It's just so, everything's like $1.99. So your kids see that like, it's just $2. But then they ask you for like 18 of them, and you're like, yeah, we just spent $40 on this game, right? Very different, smart. This game is addictive. But one time I was watching my 9-year-old play this, and I'm like, this is interesting. Because this is different than Sonic the Hedgehog, the games that I grew up playing, where we were on that one-level stage, two-dimensional, running through, grabbing things, bouncing around. This is open world. This is where you become the main character. You can build things, you can create opportunities, you can connect with people. You can learn. There's a level of danger here too. I'm not, oblivious to that. There's all types of creeps on this as well, so you have to monitor it. But this is where we are today. We are in Roblox. And I would encourage you, as you process through your days, to be the main character in your own game, and don't get caught in the traps. Build what you need to sustain. Connect with the people you need to keep moving forward, and find the purposes you need to keep moving as well. So with that, I'm gonna close out with my baby girl, Sky Boogie. Now this is one of those pandemic babies that you all hear about. This kid this is the one that asked for the Roblox. She's a whole nother dimension. But she reminds me every day of why I do this work. I came to MACMA 3 months before she was born, so she's always my little reminder of how long I've been at the organization. So she's like my personal MACMA mascot. Like, she just keeps me driving. So when I talk about children's mental health, I talk about her, but I talk about all children as well. But that one is the one that keeps me driving. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. That's all I got for you. If any of you want to connect with me, feel free to use that QR code. You can connect with me via LinkedIn, I'll take any questions or comments there. Otherwise, I want to encourage you all to enjoy the rest of our conference today. Enjoy Duluth and take the best care of yourselves. Thank you.